Good day, senior high school learners. Welcome to your distant learning through television. My name is Teacher Jackson Ibarat, in full commitment of implementing continuity education amidst global health crisis. This lesson gives you an avenue to apply your previous knowledge about functions in solving real-life problems. This lesson requires you how to represent real-life situations using functions, and evaluate functions and perform operations on functions. After going through this module, you are expected to represent situations as functions and evaluate functions to determine the required quantity. Apply concept learned in solving real-life problems involving functions and solve problems involving functions. For me to know your prior knowledge about this lesson, please answer pre-test what I know in your SLM. Choose the letter of the best answer. Write your answer in your activity notebook. You are given 5 minutes to do this. Majority of the problems we encounter in real-life situations involve relationship between two quantities where one quantity depends on another. For example, personnel in the Department of Health observes the number of persons infected by a particular virus in a certain community increases with the time. In finding out the exact functions related to the number of persons infected to time, modeling can be used. Once the model is determined, solving and predicting the properties of the subject being studied can be done. At this point, we will focus on solving in order for us to predict answers to existing problems. Let us assess our level of readiness as to how ready you are in this lesson. We will have a self-check test. This test will only determine your readiness for this lesson. Listed in a table in What's In are the skills and competencies you should possess before proceeding to this lesson. Read the statements and assess yourself whether you agree or disagree with the statements. If you agree with all the statements, that means you are very much ready with this module. However, if there are some statements where you disagree, that means you need to have a quick review of the previous lesson that will aid you in gaining success in this lesson. Now let's take a quick review. A computer pays 9 pesos for a jeepney fare for the first 5 kilometers and an additional of 0.75 cents for every succeeding distance, d in kilometer. Represent the situation as functions. So we can represent the situation as f of d is equal to 9 pesos if d is greater than 0 but less than 5 kilometers. And f of d is equal to 9 plus 0.75d if d is greater than 5. Today, we are going to learn solving real-life problems involving functions. For you to endure this lesson, let's try to read, analyze, and reflect the situations in What's In. This test will find meaning on the lesson you previously learned. Answer the questions briefly in your activity notebook. The situation that you have read, analyzed, and reflected is one of the problems that requires decision-making. In your daily travel, we expect that in every kilometer consumed in traveling, there are a corresponding service charge, we call it fare. By analyzing, we will pay much if we will travel in a far-away distance. In solving real-life problems involving functions, we are going to follow the 4 steps. We call this as George Polya's 4-step rule. First step, explore. These steps involves careful reading, analyzing, identifying the given and unknown facts in the problem, and expressing the unknown in terms of variables. Second, plan. In this step, writing an equation that describes the relationship between or among the variables is involved. Third step, solve. This step requires working out the written equation and other number relations to determine the required quantities that answer the question in the problem. Fourth step, check. The final step that employs the use of another approaches to examine the appropriateness of the answer. Now, we are going to follow the steps in solving real-life problems in this example. Let's travel. A proposed light rail transit system Line 1 or LRT1 fare would charge 18 pesos for the first 4 stations and 5 pesos for each additional station over the proposed fare. Find the fare function f of x, where x represents the number of stations traveled. Find the proposed fare for 15 stations. And find the proposed fare for 20 stations. The first task is to find the fare functions f of x, where x represents the number of stations traveled. This requires step 1 and step 2 in George-Polya's rules. Explore. In this step, you are going to assign variables to all the unknown quantities. In this case, we let x as the number of stations traveled and x minus 4 as the number of stations traveled over above station 4. Plan. This step requires us to represent the situations into a function notation. Since we know if we traveled up to 4 stations, we must pay 18 pesos. We can represent it as f of x is equal to 18 for x is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 4 stations. However, if we travel more than 4 stations, the cost of the fare have different method of computation, so we need to consider it. Since the cost of every station after the 4th station is 5 pesos, we will now obtain f of x is equal to 18 plus 5 times x minus 4. Now simplifying the equation will lead us to f of x is equal to 18 plus 5x minus 20, and simplifying it further, we have f of x is equal to 5x minus 2. At this point, we can say that the fare function is f of x is equal to 5x minus 2. The second task is to find for the fare charge for 15 stations. This requires third and fourth step of George-Polya's rule. Third rule, solve. To find the fare charge for 15 stations, the fare functions is f of x is equal to 5x minus 2 will be used and 15 will be substituted to the functions. In that case, f of 15 is equal to 5 times 15 minus 2. By multiplying 5 times 15, we can obtain the product of 75. And minus 2, we can have 73. By evaluating the functions, we obtain that f of 15 is equal to 73. Fourth step, check. To check whether we arrive at the correct solution, you can use the table or graph. Thus, the proposed fare for 15 station travel is 73 pesos. And for our third task, we are going to find for the fare charge of 20 stations. Since we know that the fare function is if f of x is equal to 5x minus 2, by substituting 20 in x in the function f of x equal to 5x minus 2, we can have 5 times 20 minus 2. And getting the product of 5 and 20, we can get 100 and minus 2, that will lead us to 98 pesos. Thus, the proposed fare for 20 station travel is only 98 pesos. Good job! Now let's try to deepen your understanding in this second example. Binge watch. Lucena Network charges 450 pesos monthly cable connection fee plus 130 pesos for each hour of pay-per-view event regardless of full hour or a fraction of an hour. Letter A. Find payment function f of x where x represents the number of pay-per-view hours. Letter B. What is the monthly bill of customer who watched 25 hours of pay-per-view events? And letter C. What is the monthly bill of customer who watched 0.5 hour of pay-per-view events? Now, we are going to follow the steps in George-Polya's rule. First step, explore. We are going to determine the given in the problem and other conditions given in the problem. Since we know that 450 is equal to the fixed monthly cable connection fee, and we are going to assume that x is the number of the pay-per-view hours in a month. So therefore, 130 times x is equal to the amount of pay-per-view payment in a specific hour. Thus, the payment function is f of x is equal to 450 plus 130x. The second task is what is the monthly bill of the customer who watched 25 hours of the pay-per-view events. This task requires us to follow the second step of George-Polya's rules. And that second step is plan. In this plan, we are going to write an equation to represent the given function. The monthly bill of the customer who watched 25 hours of pay-per-view events can be represented by X is greater than 24 but less than or equal to 25. Since we know that we can represent the function as f of x equal to 450 plus 130 times x, we can now substitute the value of x, which is 25, in the given function f of x equal to 450 plus 130x. So that means we have f of x is equal to 450 plus 130x, and substituting x by 25, so we have f times 25 is equal to 450 plus 130 times 25. So 450 plus, what is the product of 130 times 25? Good job. That is 3,250. That's 3,250. Now, we are going to get the sum of 450 and 3,250. So what do you think is the sum? Awesome. The sum is 3,750 pesos. So this means that you are going to pay 3,750 pesos if you are going to watch 25 hours in the pay-per-view. And for our third task, we are going to determine the bill of the consumer who watched 0.5-hour pay-per-view events. Thus, the monthly bill of the customer who watched 0.5 hour of the pay-per-view events can be represented by X is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 1. And since the problem states that regardless of the full hour or a fraction of an hour, the additional charge will be made on hourly basis only. Thus, the value of x will be 1. So given the function f of x is equal to 450 plus 130x, we can replace x equal to 1. Since our condition is x is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 1. So we can substitute x equal to 1 in the given function f of x is equal to 450 plus 130 times x. So that is f of 1 is equal to 450 plus 130 times 1. So f of 1 is equal to 450 plus 130 times 1 is equal to 130. So the sum of 450 plus 130 is equal to 580 pesos. That means that the monthly bill of the customer who watched 0.5 hours of the pay-per-view events is 580 pesos. To master the skills that you have learned today, answer what's more, independent practice 1 and 2, and independent assessment 1 and 2. You are given 20 minutes to do this activity, and your time starts now. To consolidate your understanding on this lesson, please answer what I have learned. In 3 to 5 sentences, write the process that you follow in solving problems involving functions. You are given 5 minutes to do this activity. To apply the concept learned in real-life problems, you are required to do what I can do. You are going to make a financial plan for a booth that you will set up and the product that you will sell. You may use the sample plan. Remember that you are graded according to planning, accuracy of the solution, and budgeting. You are given 15 minutes to do this, and good luck! Awesome! And we're almost done. To measure how far you have learned today, please answer the 15 items in assessment. Remember to write your answer in the activity notebook. Choose the letter of the best answer. You are given 15 minutes to do this activity. And that's the end of our video lesson for today. My name is Teacher Jackson Ibarat, your General Mathematics teacher on air. Stay tuned in LTN TV for more lesson videos. Have a great day! Bye-bye!